Molyneux does Storytime ASMR, and today I will be reading a favourite book of mine from my childhood. It's called The Book of Brownies by Enid Blyton. This book is published, or this version of the book was published in 1967, so it's quite an old book, but I hope you will enjoy it. And without further ado, let's go. Skip and Jump play a naughty trick. Hop, Skip and Jump were just finishing their breakfast one morning when they heard the postman rat-tatting on all the knockers down the street. "Dear me," said Hop, "everybody seems to be getting a letter this morning. Perhaps we shall too." The three brownies leaned out of the window of Crabapple Cottage and watched the postman come nearer. Next door but one, rat-tat, and a large letter fell into the letterbox. Next door, rat-tat, another large letter, just like the first. "I wonder whatever the letters are," said Skip. "They're all the same, and everyone is having one, so there'll be one for us too." But there wasn't. The postman walked right past Crabapple Cottage. "Hi," called Jump. "You've missed us out. Come back, postman." The postman shook his head. "There isn't a letter for you," he said, and rat-tatted on the knocker of the cottage next door. Well, Hop, Skip and Jump were upset. No letter for them when everyone else had one. Whoever could be writing letters and missing them out? "Let's go and ask Gobo next door what his letter's about," said Hop. So the three brownies hopped into Gobble's. They found him looking very pleased and excited, reading his letter out loud to Pinky, his wife. "What's it all about?" asked Skip. "Listen, just listen," said Gobo. "It's an invitation from the king. This is what he says. His Majesty, the King of Fairyland, is giving a grand party on Thursday. Please come." "Oh," cried the brownies. "Then why haven't we been asked?" Gobo looked surprised. "Haven't you had a letter?" he asked. "Oh well, there must be a reason for it. Have you been good lately?" "Not very," said Hop. "Not awfully," said Skip. "Not at all," said Jump. He was the most truthful of the three. "Well, there you are," said Gobo, folding up his letter. "You know the king never asks bad brownies to his parties. You can't expect to be invited if you will be naughty." The brownies went out crossly. ran back into Crabapple Cottage and sat down round the table. "What have we done that was naughty lately?" asked Hop. "We painted old Mother Wimple's pig green," said Skip. "Yes, and we got onto Gilly Brown's cottage roof and put fireworks down a chimney," said Jump. "And we put a bit of prickly gauze in that horrid old wizard's bed," said Hop. "Oh dear, perhaps we have been a bit naughtier than usual. And someone's told the king," sighed Skip. "So we've been left out of the party," groaned Jump. "Well, it serves us right." Everybody except the 3 bad brownies had got an invitation. Brownie Town was most excited. "It's going to be a very grand party," said Gobo next door, who was busy making himself a new suit. "There's going to be dancing and conjuring and presents for everybody." This made Hop, Skip and Jump feel more disappointed than ever. "Can't we go somehow?" wondered Hop. "Can't we dress up and pretend to be someone else, not ourselves?" "We haven't got a card to show," said Skip mournfully. "Look, there's Gobo's wife," said Jump, pointing through the window. "What's she looking upset about?" "Hi, Pinky, what's the matter?" "Oh, a great disappointment," answered Pinky. "The conjurer that the king was going to have at the party can't come after all, and the Lord High Chamberlain can't get anyone else. Isn't it disappointing?" "Not so disappointing for us as for you," said Hop. Then a great idea came to him, and he turned to Skip and Jump. "I say," he said, with his naughty little eyes twinkling, "I say, couldn't we pretend we were conjurers and get the Lord High Chamberlain to let us into the party?" "What a fine idea!" cried Skip and Jump in delight. "You could be the conjurer, Hop, and we'll be your assistants." "But what trick shall we do?" asked Hop. "We don't know how to do any yet." All that morning the brownies tried to think of conjuring tricks to do at the party, but although they tried their hardest to make rabbits come out of hats and ribbons come out of their mouths, it wasn't a bit of good. They just couldn't do it. They were having dinner and feeling very unhappy about everything when a knock came at the door. "Come in," cried Hop. The door opened and an old woman with green eyes looked in. "Good afternoon," she said. "Do you want to buy any magic?" "She's a witch," whispered Jump. "Be careful of her." "What sort of magic?" asked Hop. "Oh, any sort," said the witch, coming into the room. "Look here." She took Hop's watch, rubbed it between her hands, blew on it, and opened her hands again. The watch was gone. "Buttons and buttercups," gasped Hop in astonishment. "Where's it gone to?" "You'll find it in the teapot," said the witch. Skip lifted the lid of the teapot, and there, sure enough, lay the watch, half covered in tea leaves. He fished it out with a spoon. Hop was very cross. "I call that a silly trick," he said. "Why, you might have spoiled my watch." "Do something else, Mistress Witch," begged Jump. "Give me your teacup," said the witch. Jump gave it to her. The witch filled it full of tea, covered it with a plate, whistled on the plate, and took it off again. "Oh," cried Jump, hardly believing his eyes, "it's full of little goldfish." So it was, the tiniest, prettiest little things you ever saw. The brownies thought it was wonderful. Then the witch emptied Jump's tea into Skip's cup, and hey presto, all the fishes vanished. The brownies began to feel as if they were dreaming. "If only we could do 1 or 2 tricks like that," sighed Hop. "Why, we could get into the king's party as easily as anything." "Oh ho, so you want to go to the party, do you?" asked the witch. special one. Show us it, said the brownies, beginning to feel most excited. The witch went outside and came back carrying a round green basket with a yellow lid. She put it on the floor. Now you, she said, pointing to Hop, jump into this basket. Hop jumped inside. The witch put the lid on. Then she tapped 3 times on the top of it and sang, Rimini, Romini, Ray, my magic will send you away. Rimini, Romini, Row, ever so far you will go. Skip and Jump looked at the basket. It didn't move or creak. Take off the lid and look inside, said the witch. Skip took off the lid and almost fell into the basket in surprise. Oh, he shouted. Oh, Hop's gone and the basket's empty. So it was. There was nothing in it at all. Now watch, said the witch, and putting the lid on again, she began singing, Rimini, Romini, Ray, hear the spell and obey. Rimini, Romini, Ralph, jump out of the basket yourself. Immediately the lid flew off, and out jumped Hop, looking as pleased as could be. Good gracious, gasped Jump, sitting down suddenly on a chair. Where have you been, Hop? In the basket all the time, said Hop. But you weren't. We looked, said Skip. You couldn't have, said Hop, or you'd have seen me. We did look, I tell you, said Skip crossly. Be quiet, said the witch. It's the magic in the basket that does the trick. Now listen, I'll lend you the basket if you promise to do the trick at the party in front of the king and queen. Of course we will, cried the brownies. But why do you lend it to us for nothing? Oh, just because I'm kind-hearted, said the witch, grinning very wide. Indeed. But mind, when you've got into the basket and have vanished and been brought back, you've got to offer to do the same thing with anyone else. Perhaps the king will offer to get into the basket, or the queen, or the princess. My, said Hop, do you think they will? They're almost sure to, said the witch, so mind you let them try. But you must remember this, if any of the royal family get in, tap 7 times, not 3 times. On the lid, when you sing the magic verse, 3 times for ordinary folk, but 7 times for royalty. See? Yes, we'll remember, promised Skip, and thank you very much for lending us such a lovely trick. When the witch had gone, leaving behind her the green basket with its yellow lid, the 3 brownies were tremendously excited. They began to plan their dresses for the next day and spent all the afternoon and evening making them. Hop looked very grand in a black velvet suit with a long red cloak and peaked hat. Skip and Jump were dressed like pages and were just alike in bright green suits. When the party day came, they all went out very early with the magic basket and hid in a nearby wood, for they didn't want any of the brownies to see them. And guess what they were going to do? I hope they have lots of lovely things for tea, said Hop. I'm getting very hungry. It will soon be time to go, said Skip. Hark! There are the drums to say that the first guests have arrived. Come along then, said Jump. We'll arrive too. Now remember, I'm Twirly-Whirly, the great conjurer from the land of Tiddlywinks, said Hop, and you are my 2 assistants. Don't forget, you've got to be polite to me and bow each time you speak to me. Off they went, all feeling a little nervous, but Hop, who was bigger than the others and rather fat, looked so grand in his red cloak that Skip and Jump soon began to feel nobody could possibly guess the secret. At last they reached the palace gates. Your cards, said the sentry to Hop, Skip and Jump. I am Twirly-Whirly, the great conjurer from the land of Tiddlywinks, said Hop in such a grand voice that Skip and Jump wanted to laugh. I am here to take the place of the conjurer who could not come. The sentry straight up the drive, he said, and at the top of the first flight of steps you will find the Lord High Chamberlain. The 3 brownies went on. Hop was enjoying himself. He told the others to walk behind him and bow to him whenever they saw him turn their way. "You're getting a great deal too grand," grumbled Jump, who began to wish he was the conjurer instead of Hop, for he was carrying the basket and finding it rather heavy. The Lord High Chamberlain was very surprised to see them. He was even more surprised when he heard Hop telling him who he was. "Twirly Whirly, the great conjurer," he said, pretending to know all about him. "Dear me, what an honour, to be sure. Very kind of you to have come, very kind. Pray, come this way." He led them to a tea table and gave Hop a chair. Skip and Jump stood behind him and looked longingly at the cakes and jellies, tarts and custards spread out on the table in front of Hop. Little pages ran up and offered all the nicest things to the conjurer. He took some of each, and Skip and Jump looked on enviously. "Aren't we going to have any?" whispered Skip in Hop's ear. "You're not going to leave us out, are you?" "Hush," said Hop. "You are only my servants today. If you don't keep quiet, I shall keep turning round to you, and you'll have to bow till your backs ache." Hop had an enormous tea. Then he announced to the Lord High Chamberlain that he would now come and do his famous trick with his magic basket, if their Majesties the King and Queen would like to see it. Their Majesties at once sent a message to say they would be very pleased to see it. "Come this way," said the Chamberlain, and led the 3 brownies to where the King and Queen sat on their thrones. In front of them was a square piece of grass, and round it sat scores of fairies and gnomes, brownies and elves, all waiting to see Twirly Whirly, the great conjurer. Hop stepped grandly up to the King and Queen and bowed 3 times. So did Skip and Jump. "I will now do my wonderful basket trick," he said Hop in a very loud and haughty voice. Then he turned to Skip. "Bring me the basket," he ordered. Skip rushed forward with it in such a hurry that he tumbled over, and everyone began laughing. Jump helped him up, and together they picked up the magic basket. "Get into it," commanded Hop, pointing at Skip. Skip jumped in. "Put the lid on," Hop commanded Jump. Jump did so. Then Hop tapped 3 times on the lid and sang, "Rimini, Romini, Ray, my magic will send you away. Rimini, Romini, Row, ever so far you will go." Everybody listened and watched and wondered what was going to happen. The King and Queen bent forward to get a better view, and the little Princess Peronelle stood up in her excitement. "Take the lid off," she ordered. "Take the lid off," ordered Hop. Jump took the lid off. The basket was empty. "Oh," said everyone in the greatest surprise. "Oh, he's gone." "Roll the basket round for everyone to see that it's empty," commanded Hop, who was now thoroughly enjoying himself. Jump rolled the basket round so that everyone could have a good look. Then he brought it back to Hop. "Put the lid on," said Hop. Jump put it on. Everybody stopped breathing to see whatever was going to happen next. Hop tapped 3 times on the lid and sang the magic song. "Rimini, Romini, Ray, hear the spell and obey. Rimini, Romini, Ralph, jump out of the basket yourself." Just as he finished, the lid flew off, and out jumped Skip in his little green suit, looking as perky as anything. He capered about and bowed to everyone. Oh look, he's come back again," shouted the fairies and brownies. "Oh, what a wonderful trick. Do it again, do it again." Hop bowed very low. who should come running onto the grass but the Princess Perenelle. "Come back, Perenelle," cried the king. "You're not to get into that basket." Oh please, she begged. "It's my birthday, and you said I could have anything I wanted." No, said the queen. "You mustn't get into that basket. Come back." "I shall cry then," said Perenelle, screwing up her pretty little face. Oh dear, said the king, who couldn't bear to see Perenelle cry. "You'd have better have your own way then. You'd better make haste about it." Perenelle jumped into the green basket, and Skip clapped on the lid. Hop remembered what the witch had told him. He must tap the lid 7 times for royalty. So, very solemnly, he did so. Then he and Skip and Jump all chanted the magic rhyme together. "Rimini, romini, ray, my magic will send you away. Rimini, romini, row, ever so far you will go." But oh dear, whatever do you think happened? Why, just as the magic rhyme was finished, the basket rose into the air and sailed right away. Higher and higher it went, over the trees and over the palace, towards the setting sun. Oh, cried the queen, jumping up in terrible distress. "Where's my Perenelle gone to? Bring her back quickly." But Hop, Skip and Jump was just as surprised as anyone. What an extraordinary thing for the basket to do. "Arrest those conjurers," suddenly said the king, in an awful voice. 6 soldiers at once ran up and clapped their hands on the brownie soldiers' shoulders. "Now, unless you bring Perenelle back at once," said the king, "you go straight to prison, and I'll have your heads cut off in the morning." "Oh no, cried the brownies, very frightened indeed. Please, we aren't conjurers, only just brownies." "Nonsense," stormed the king. "Ordinary brownies can't do tricks like that. Now then, are you going to bring Perenelle back again?" I can't, wailed Hop, big tears beginning to pour down his cheeks. "I'm only a naughty brownie, dressed up like a conjurer, because you didn't ask me to your party." Suddenly, a watching brownie gave a shout of surprise. It was Gobo. He ran up to Hop and pulled off his peaked hat and red cloak. "Why, it's Hop!" he cried in astonishment. "Your Majesty, these brownies are Hop, Skip and Jump, the 3 naughty brownies of our town." "Good gracious," said the king in a terrible upset. "This is more serious than I thought. If they are really brownies, then they cannot bring Perenelle back." "But where did you get the basket from?" he asked Hop sternly. Hop dried his eyes and told the king all about the witch's visit, and how she had left her basket with them. "Oh, it's Witch Green Eyes," groaned the king. "She's often vowed to steal Perenelle away, and now she's done it through you, you naughty, stupid little brownies." "My goodness," said Hop. "Do you think the witch has really stolen her for always?" "Yes," sobbed the queen, who was terribly distressed. "We shall never get her back again, the darling." "Oh my goodness," said Skip in a frightened voice. "Oh my goodness," wailed Jump in a miserable voice. "Oh your goodness," suddenly roared the king in a temper. "What do you mean, oh your goodness? You ought to say, oh your badness. You mischievous little brownies. You haven't a bit of goodness among the 3 of you, and now see what you've done. I've a good mind to cut off your heads." "Oh my goodness," went Hop again. He didn't mean to say it, but he couldn't think of anything else. The king grew angrier than ever. "Where is your goodness?" he demanded. "Yes, where is it?" shouted everybody. "We don't know," stammered the brownies in dismay. "Well, go and find it," stormed the king. "Go along, go right out of fairyland, and don't come back till you've found your goodness that you keep talking about. Make haste, before I cut off your heads." "Oh, oh, oh," cried the 3 brownies in a great fright, and they all took to their heels and fled. Down the steps they went, and down the drive, and out through the palace gates, past the astonished sentries. Even then they didn't stop. They rushed down the road and into the cuckoo wood as if 1,000 soldiers were after them. At last, out of breath, tired and unhappy, they sat down under a big oak tree. "Oh my goodness," began Hop. "Don't be silly," said Skip. "Don't keep saying that. We're in a terrible, terrible fix." "To be turned down to fairyland," went Jump. "Oh, what a terrible punishment. And how can we find our goodness? Of course we never shall. People don't have goodness they can find." "It's just the king's way of banishing us from fairyland altogether," wept Hop. "He knows we'll never be able to go back. And oh dear, whatever's happened to poor little Perenelle." What indeed? None of the brownies knew, and they were very unhappy. "The only thing to do now is to go and see if we can find Perenelle and rescue her," said Jump. "We'll sleep here for the night and start off in the morning on our way to Witchland." So all night long they slept beneath the big oak tree and dreamed of horrid magic baskets and packets of goodness that would keep running away from them. Their adventures in the cottage without a door. Next morning the brownies set out on their journey. They soon passed the borders of fairyland and found themselves in the lands outside. For a long, long time they walked and met nobody at all. "I am getting hungry," sighed Hop. "So am I," said Skip. "Well, look, there's a cottage," said Jump. "We'll go and ask if we can have something to eat. Have you got any money, Hop?" Hop felt in his pockets. "Not a penny," he said. "Oh dear, nor have I," said Skip. "What are we to do then?" asked Jump. "Perhaps there's someone kind living in the cottage who will give us some breakfast for nothing." The 3 brownies went up to the little cottage. It was surrounded by trees, and its front door was painted a very beautiful bright blue. Hop knocked loudly. "Who is knocking at my door?" asked a deep voice. 3 hungry brownies," answered Hop boldly. "Come in," said the voice. Hop opened the door and the brownies went in. Clap! The door swung to behind them and made them jump. Hop looked round to see who had shut the door, but to his enormous surprise he could see no door at all, and yet they had just come in by one. "Good gracious," he cried, "wherever has the door gone?" He, chuckled a deep voice. "It's gone where you won't find it. I've got you prisoners now, 3 nice little servants to work for me all day." Hop, Skip and Jump looked most astonished. This was a fine sort of welcome. Then they saw an old bent wizard huddled up by the cottage fire, laughing at them. "We're not your prisoners, so please let us go," said Hop. "All right, go," laughed the wizard. But search as they would, the brownies couldn't find any door at all. There were blank walls all around them. Then they knew they were prisoners indeed. "Now listen," said the wizard. "I will give you your meals, and in return you must work for me. I have a great many spells I want copied out. Sit down at the table and begin work at once." The 3 brownies obeyed. They knew that it was best not to anger such a powerful wizard. He brought them each a great book of magic and set it down beside them. "Begin at page 1, he said, "and if you make me a fair copy of all the books, without one single mistake, perhaps I will let you go." "Oh dear," groaned Jump. "Why, the books have got about 1,000 pages each." The 3 brownies set to work, and very difficult it was too, for the wizard wrote so badly that they could hardly read his writing in the big magic books. All day they wrote, and all the wizard gave them to eat was a large turnip, which tasted just like India rubber. The brownies kept looking round to see if the door came back again, but alas, wizard was snoring on his bed, the three brownies began whispering together. "We must escape somehow," said Hop. "But how?" whispered Skip and Jump. None of them could think of a plan at all. "It's no good thinking of escaping until we find out about that disappearing door," groaned Hop. "The wizard's barred the window right across. We'd better go to sleep." So off to sleep they went, and were wakened up very early the next morning by the wizard, who wanted his breakfast. After that they had to sit down and copy out the magic books again. It was dreadfully dull work. But suddenly Hop found he was copying out something that made his heart beat with excitement. It was about disappearing doors. A disappearing door will come back if a wizard's green stick is swung 3 times in the air and dropped, said the book. Hop's hand shook as he copied it out. If only the wizard's stick is green, and I could get hold of it whilst he's asleep, he thought. He turned round to look at the stick. Yes, it was green, sure enough, but the wizard was holding it tightly in his hands. But when he's asleep, he'll put it down, thought Hop, longing to tell Skip and Jump what he had discovered. That night he watched the wizard carefully, but oh, how disappointed he was to see that he went to bed with his stick still held in his hand. I'd be sure to wake him if I tried to get his stick, thought Hop, and he whispered to Skip and Jump all that he had thought of during the day. They were most excited. "Oh, do let's try to get his stick," whispered Skip. "If only we could get out of this horrid cottage. And if only we could go back to dear old Fairyland," whispered Jump with tears in his eyes. Now Hop was the bravest of the brownies, and he couldn't bear to see Jump cry. "I'll go and see if I can possibly get the stick," he said. "Stay here and don't make a sound." Then the brave little brownie crept quietly across the floor till he reached the wizard's bed. "Snore, snore," went the wizard. "Snore, snore." Carefully Hop put up his hand and felt in the bedclothes for the green stick. But oh my! No sooner did he catch hold of it, then what do you think happened? Why, that stick jumped straight out of bed by itself and began to chase poor Hop all around the room, rapping him on his knuckles and hitting him on the back till Hop began to yell in pain and fright. That woke the wizard up. He sat up in bed and chuckled. He laughed. "So you were trying to steal my stick, were you? Well, well, you won't do it again in a hurry." Poor Hop was running all over the place, trying to get out of the way of the stick, which chased him into corners and gave him as good a whipping as he had ever had in his life. "Come back, stick, at last," said the wizard, and the stick jumped back into bed with him. Hop ran over to see the others. "This all comes of our last naughty trick at the king's palace," he sobbed. "If only we could go back to Brownie Town, I'd never be bad again." After that, the brownies knew it was no good trying to get the stick away from the wizard. They were much too afraid of it. "We must think of something else," sighed Skip. Each night the brownies whispered together, but no plans could they think of at all. Then one day the wizard had a visitor. He was a red goblin and the ugliest little fellow you could think of. He didn't come in by the vanished door nor by the window, so the brownies thought he must have jumped down the chimney. "Good morning," he said to the wizard. "Have you those spells you were going to give me?" "They are not ready yet," answered the wizard, so humbly and politely that the brownies pricked up their ears. Oh, they thought, this red goblin must be someone more powerful than the wizard, for the wizard seems quite frightened of him. "Not ready," growled the goblin. "Well, see that they are ready by tomorrow, or I'll spirit you away to the highest mountain in the world." The wizard shivered and shook and told the goblin he would be sure to have the spells ready by the next day. "Mind you do," said the goblin, and jumped straight up the chimney. The brownies stared open-mouthed. And then Hop had a wonderful idea. He turned to the wizard. "That goblin is much cleverer than you, isn't he? He said. Pooh! Growled the wizard angrily. I can do things he can't do. Can you really? Asked Hop, opening his eyes very wide. What can you do? Well, I can make myself as big as a giant, said the wizard. That's a wonderful thing, said Hop. Let's see you do it. Yes, let's, said Skip and Jump, seeing that Hop was following out an idea he had suddenly thought of. The wizard muttered a few words and rubbed his forehead with some ointment out of a purple box. All at once he began to grow enormously big. Bump! His head touched the ceiling, so the wizard sat down on the floor. Still, he went on growing until once again his head touched the ceiling, and he filled the cottage from wall to wall. The three brownies had to jump on the windowsill to get out of his way. Wonderful, wonderful, cried Hop, clapping his hands. You're a giant now. The wizard looked pleased. He muttered something else and quickly grew smaller till he reached his own size again. He said. That will teach you to say that the goblin is cleverer than I am. Oh, but perhaps the goblin can make himself smaller than you can, said Hop. The wizard snorted crossly. That he can't, he said. Why, I can make myself small enough to sit in that pudding basin. Surely not, said Hop, Skip and Jump together. I'll just show you, said the wizard. He rubbed some ointment on his forehead and out of a yellow box, and at once he began to shrink. Smaller and smaller he grew until he was the size of a doll. Put me on the table, he squeaked to the brownie. Skip put him there. He jumped into the pudding basin and sat down. Wonderful, wonderful, cried Hop. You can't grow any smaller, of course. That I can, squeaked the wizard. Small enough to sit in a teacup? Asked Hop. The wizard rubbed some more ointment on his forehead. He grew smaller still and jumped into a teacup. Simply marvellous, said Hop, Skip and Jump. I can grow smaller still, squealed the wizard. What, small enough to creep into this wee bottle? Asked Hop, pretending to be greatly surprised and holding out a tiny bottle. The wizard laughed, and at once became very tiny indeed, so tiny that he was able to creep through the neck of the little bottle and sit in it easily. Then, quick as a flash, Hop picked up the cork and corked up the bottle. Ha! He cried in the greatest excitement. Now I've got you. Now you can't get out. Now you can't get out. The wizard shouted and yelled in his bottle and struggled and kicked against the cork, but it wasn't a bit of good, not a bit. You're a wicked wizard, said Skip, and now you've got your punishment. Where's the wizard's stick? Asked Jump, looking round. Oh, there it is, leaning by his chair. Perhaps the wizard is powerless now, and his stick will be harmless to us. He picked it up. It did nothing at all, but behaved just like an ordinary stick. Now to get out of here, said Jump. He swung the green stick 3 times into the air and let it fall on the ground. At once the blue door appeared in one of the walls. Hurrah! Cried Skip, and flung it open. Now we're free again. But dear me, what a surprise they got when they ran out of the cottage, for instead of being among the trees in the wood, it now stood on a sandy beach, and in front of the 3 brownies stretched a calm blue sea. Good gracious, cried the brownies. What an extraordinary thing. The cottage must have been travelling for days. They looked out over the blue sea. Not a sail was to be seen. Well, I don't want to go exploring along this part of the country anymore, said Jump. In case we meet any more unpleasant wizards, I wish we could sail away on the sea. I know, cried Hop. Let's get the table out of the cottage and turn it upside down, and use the tablecloth for a sail, shouted Skip, and the magic stick for a mast. So into the cottage they went again, and dragged out the big table. They turned it upside down on the water, and it floated beautifully. Then they set up the mast and fastened the tablecloth for a sail. Bring some of that purple and yellow ointment, called Hop to Skip. It might come in useful. So the 2 boxes of ointment were fetched, and Hop put them into his pocket. Then, picking up the bottle with the angry little wizard inside, he pushed off their table boat, jumped on it, and there were the brownies safe and sound on the calm blue sea. A tiny little breeze took them along, and they watched the wizard's cottage grow smaller and smaller in the distance. "We'll keep the wizard with us," said Hop. "He might come in useful somehow, and so long as he's corked in the bottle, he's quite harmless." So he slipped the little bottle into his pocket along with the boxes of ointment. On and on they went, walking softly over the sea, till one by one they grew drowsy, and soon in the afternoon sun they fell asleep, whilst their queer little boat went sailing dreamily on. Their adventure in the castle of the Red Goblin. As the sun was setting, the three brownies awoke and rubbed their eyes. The sea was still very calm. Hop looked all round, then he pointed excitedly to the left. "Look," he cried, "land!" Skip and Jump looked. "An island," said Skip. "I wonder who lives there." "There's a very grand castle on the top of that hill," said Jump. "Someone grand must live there, I think." "Well, it isn't a very big island," said Hop. "What about landing and seeing if we can find anyone and get something to eat?" Just as he said that, the table boat changed its course and floated with the tide towards the island. "Good," said Skip. "The boat thinks it would like to visit there," and he patted the table kindly. As they floated nearer, they saw that there were trees near the edge of the sea, and directly behind them rose the steep hill on the top of which was set the castle. It was built of red stone and gleamed oddly in the setting sun. "I don't much like the look of it," said Hop suddenly. "Goodness knows who lives there. Let's go." But Jump was curious to see what was on the little lonely island. "Oh, let's go," he begged. "I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll just land for a few minutes and have a look around. Then, if we see anything we don't like, we'll jump onto our table boat again and sail off." "All right," said Hop. "Only don't blame me if anything happens." The boat reached the shingle and grated against the stones. Off jumped the three brownies, pulled their boat higher up the beach and looked around. No one was there at all. The trees grew right down to the beach and whispered and sighed as if they could tell many secrets, if only they knew the brownie language. The brownies went into the wood. It was gloomy there. No birds sang, and no little animals frisked and rustled about. Hop, Skip and Jump thought it was a horrid place. Then suddenly they heard the sound of crying. "Whoever's that?" said Hop, peering between the whispering trees. "Look, it's a little girl," said Jump, in the greatest astonishment. "Whatever is she doing here?" "She's lame," said Skip. "She can't walk properly." "Let's go and comfort her," said Hop, who couldn't bear to see anyone cry. So very quietly they walked through the trees towards the little girl. She had sea-blue eyes, golden hair that floated around her, and a dress made of tight-fitting scales, just like a fish's coat. Her feet were big and ugly. "What's the matter, little girl?" asked Hop in his kindest voice. The little girl jumped. She looked up at him in fright and then stared at him and the other brownies in astonishment. "Oh," she said, "brownies, however did you come here, to this dreadful island?" "Dreadful island," said Skip, feeling rather uncomfortable. "Why is it dreadful?" "Oh, don't you know who it belongs to?" asked the little girl. "It belongs to that horrid red goblin, and he's so powerful he can work nearly all the magic spells there are." "Oh my," said the three brownies, feeling very upset indeed. "The red goblin, oh my." "It was he who came and frightened the wizard so much," said Hop. "Fancy having the bad luck to float to his island. We'd better sail away quickly." Then he turned to the little girl. "But how is it you're here?" he asked. "And what were you crying for?" "Well, I don't belong here," she said sadly. "I'm a little mermaid, really, and I used to have a tail. Then one day the red goblin caught me and changed my tail into these horrid feet, because he knew I wouldn't be able to swim away then, and I've been here a whole year, keeping his red castle clean for him. Oh dear, oh dear." She began to cry again. Hop couldn't bear it. He put his arm around her. "Never mind," he said. "I'll tell you something. Lovely. We've got a boat on the beach near here, and we'll take you away from this horrid island this very night." and so loudly that the brownies were afraid someone would hear. "Come along," said Skip nervously. "The sun's gone down, but the moon's coming up, and there's quite enough light to set off on our voyage again. Do come on." "Yes, quick," said Jump, and the three brownies and Mermaid made their way through the trees to the shore. They looked along the beach for their boat, but, oh dear me, where was their boat? It was gone, quite gone. "Buttons and buttercups, where's the boat gone?" whispered Hop, feeling his heart beat very fast. "Look," said Skip in dismay, "the tide's taking it out to sea again. There it is, ever so far out." Sure enough it was. The three brownies stared at the table bobbing far away in the moonlight. "We can swim out to it," said Jump. "But the mermaid can't swim. Now she hasn't got a tail," said Hop. "And we can't leave her alone here." "No, we can't," said Skip and Jump decidedly. "But whatever shall we do?" wondered Hop. "Come back to my cottage for the night," said the mermaid, "and in the morning perhaps we shall think of something." She led them through the trees to a little tumble-down hut, and gave them dry bracken to lie on for a bed. Then she made some bread and milk, and they all ate it and tried to think of a plan. But soon they felt so sleepy that their eyes closed, and they slept on their bracken beds until morning. No one had thought of a plan. Hop frowned and wondered what to do. At last he made up his mind. "There's nothing for it but boldness," he said. We must just march up to the castle and demand a boat to take us away." "That would never do," said the mermaid. "The Red Goblin would laugh at you and turn you into beetles or something. He's only polite to wizards, and that's because he thinks they know a magic spell that he doesn't know." "Very well then," said Hop, an idea coming into his head. "If he's only polite to wizards, we'll pretend to be wizards, and trust to luck to get away somehow. Don't talk to me for a minute, and I'll think of a plan." Everybody was very quiet whilst Hop thought hard. "Listen," he said. "We'll all go up to the castle with the mermaid. She must hide you two somewhere in the castle. I'll meet the Red Goblin alone, and if he's nasty, I'll clap my hands 3 times and you must come running in. He'll think then I've called you by magic, for he won't know where you've come from, and perhaps he'll be polite then and hope to get some new spells from me." So it was arranged. The mermaid led them up to the back door of the castle by a secret way through the woods. Then she went to see what the Red Goblin was doing. "It's all right," she whispered when she came back. "He's having a bath. I'll take Skip and Jump into the big hall and hide them each in a chest there. The Goblin will be surprised when they jump out. You go round to the castle door and ring the bell in 10 minutes' time, Hop." Skip and Jump crept off with the mermaid, feeling very nervous indeed. She put them safely into 2 chests and closed the lids. Then Hop went boldly round to the castle door. He saw a great bell rope hanging by the side. He took hold of it and pulled it sharply 3 times. Jangle, 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 it went. Hop waited. "Who's there?" came the angry voice of the Red Goblin, and the great castle door slid open to show the Goblin standing in the doorway. "A wizard come to see you," said Hop, bowing low. "Come in," growled the Goblin, and led the way into the great hall. "Who are you?" he asked. "Ah, that is a secret," answered Hop. "Oh," said the Goblin, wondering who he could be. "How did you get here?" "That also is a secret," answered Hop. "I do not give my magic spells away for nothing." "Oh," said the Goblin again, thinking this must be a very clever wizard. "Will you stay here for a day or 2, and perhaps we can exchange spells?" "Certainly," answered Hop. "Allow me to call my servants to wait on me." He clapped his hands 3 times, and to the Goblin's tremendous astonishment, up popped the lids of 2 chests nearby, and out jumped 2 brownies. They ran up to Hop and bowed. "Master, we come from the ends of the earth to greet you," they said. "How did they come into those chests then?" demanded the astonished Goblin. "That is a secret," smiled Hop. The Goblin thought there were a great deal too many secrets about this peculiar wizard. He was quite determined to find them all out. "Come to breakfast," he said, and invited Hop to a big table on which were set all kinds of food. Hop sat down. He was very hungry, and he knew Skip and Jump were too. How could he manage to get them food? Servants, get under the table, he said suddenly. Take off my shoes and tickle my feet whilst I eat. The goblin stared in surprise. I enjoy my food better when my feet are tickled, explained Hop. The goblin said nothing, but he thought this wizard was one of the queerest he had ever met. He was astonished, too, at the way he ate. No sooner was his plate full than it was empty. He didn't know that half of it was dropped down to skip and jump under the table. Dear me, he said at last, when Hop had taken 3 apples and apparently eaten them in 1 minute. Tickling your feet seems to give you a great appetite, Sir Wizard. You should try it too, answered Hop. Take off his boots, servants, and tickle him. In a second, Skip and Jump slipped off the goblin's shoes and began tickling his feet. The goblin gave one yell and fell off his chair. Don't, I can't bear it, he shouted, rolling about on the floor. Skip and Jump giggled and tickled him all the more. Suddenly, to Hop's horror, the red goblin gave a yell of rage and shouted some magic words. Immediately, Skip and Jump disappeared, and in their places were 2 brown mice. How dare you let your servants do that, raged the goblin. See how I have punished them. Hop went pale with fear. Poor Skip and Jump changed into mice. Then he faced the goblin. Change my servants back at once, he commanded in his biggest voice. The goblin laughed. Change them back yourself if you're such a wonderful wizard, he grinned. Hop looked around wildly for something to help them. Then he quickly put his hand into his pocket. Yes, the little bottle with the wizard in it was still there. Do you know what I do to people who annoy me? He asked the goblin. I don't change them into mice. That's a very ordinary trick. I put them into bottles, like this. And he drew out the bottle, and he showed it to the goblin. The goblin looked at it and saw the wizard sitting inside. Ow, he cried. It's the wizard I visited yesterday. Good gracious. Look at him, as small as a beetle, sitting in one of his own bottles. Oh, what a wonderful wizard you must be to have done that to him. Yes, I am, said Hop, and I'll put you into a smaller bottle if you don't do what I say. Change my servants back to their own form. The goblin muttered some magic words, and the 2 mice disappeared. In their place stood Skip and Jump again, looking as frightened as could be. Thank you, said Hop. I'm glad I didn't have to bottle you up. You'd have made the 55th bottle person in my cupboard at home, if I had. The goblin trembled. Of course I don't want that you bottled up that wizard, he said. He's a nasty little person, not a bit truthful, and very stupid. The wizard inside the bottle heard what he said, and was as angry as anything. He jumped about in his bottle and kicked and struggled and shook his tiny fist at the goblin. Ah, said the goblin, you can't get at me, you tiny little thing. I always thought you were silly and stupid, but I really didn't think you were stupid enough to get put into a bottle. The tiny wizard grew so angry that Hop began to be afraid he would break the bottle, so he hastily slipped him into his pocket again. Now, said the goblin, let me show you around my castle. I collect all sorts of magic things, and they may interest you. Hop thought they certainly would, and he went with the goblin. He was shown all kinds of things. This, said the goblin, is a witch's cauldron. I can make powerful magic in it, and this is a fairy's wand. I stole it from a sleeping fairy one day. Hop thought he was an even nastier goblin than he had thought before. Before he said nothing. But he said nothing. He just looked and wondered if he would be shown anything that might help them to escape. The goblin showed him some magic books, which read themselves out loud. Magic seeds that grew shoots, leaves, flowers, and fruit. Whilst he watched, magic tablecloths that spread themselves with food. Hop began to feel quite dizzy with all the wonders shown him. Then he saw something that made his heart beat fast. This, said the goblin proudly, is a witch's broomstick. Will it fly? Asked Hop. Oh yes, said the goblin, but it only flies when you say the magic words. And that's a secret. Oh! Boo, said Hop. You only say it's a secret because you can't make it fly, or you don't want me to know you can't. You don't know the magic rhyme. You don't know the magic rhyme. I do, then, cried the goblin in a temper. Listen. On a B-O, away we go. On a B-I, up in the sky. Immediately the broom rose in the air and flew towards the window. The goblin clapped his hands. It flew back again and stood still in its place. There you are, said the goblin. Did Did I know the magic rhyme, or didn't I? You did, said Hop, grinning to himself to think that he and Skip and Jump now knew it too. I beg your pardon, you are cleverer than I thought. That pleased the goblin, and he became quite friendly. After dinner he went away by himself to practice magic, and Hop, Skip, Jump, and the mermaid went to the kitchen to make their plans. We'll creep tonight into the room where the broomstick is, planned Hop, and jump on it. We'll say the magic rhyme, and off we'll go. They wandered about the castle till night fell. Then, when the goblin had shown them their room and bade them good night, they crept up to the kitchen again to fetch the mermaid. Then Hop went to see if the way was clear. He tiptoed into the room where the broom was kept, but, oh my, there was a light there, and the red goblin was sitting at the table reading a magic book. He may be there all night, sighed the mermaid. Well, we must go tonight, decided Hop, because any minute tomorrow I might give myself away. I nearly did lots of times today. Just at that moment he felt the little bottle in his pocket, jerking about. He took it out and saw the tiny wizard knocking on the glass. Let me out, he squeaked in a voice like a mouse. Let me out, let me get at that red goblin. Well, now that's an idea, said Hop, staring at him. He ran up into the room above the one in which the red goblin sat, and kicked and thumped on the floor, and made a terrible noise. Then he loosened the cork in the wizard's bottle, and set the bottle down in the middle of the floor. Then he ran and hid behind the curtain. After a bit he came up the red goblin, wondering whatever in the world all the bumping and thumping was. He was very much surprised to see the bottle on the floor. He went up and looked at it. Directly the wizard saw him, he began kicking and banging at the loosened cork. Then pop, out it flew, and out came the wizard like a beetle on the floor. In a trice he grew bigger and bigger until he reached his usual size. And then, oh my, he went for the red goblin and gave him a terrible punch in the chest. The goblin went over like a skittle. Hop didn't wait to see any more. He ran downstairs and called the others. Together they went in the broomstick room. Now quickly, said Hop, jump on whilst those two up there are fighting. They've forgotten all about us. The mermaid jumped on, Skip jumped on, and so did Hop, but oh dear, there wasn't any room for Jump. The broomstick only held 3. It'll break if we have 4, groaned Hop. Now what are we to do? Leave me behind, of course, said the mermaid, and jumped off again. Certainly not, said all the brownies at once, and poured on again. Then Jump made a brave speech. I'm not coming, he said. It was my fault that we came to this island. I wanted to see what was on it, so I'm going to be the one to stay behind. Well, there was no time to be lost in arguing, so poor Jump was left behind. Annabee-oh, away we'll go. Annabee-I, up in the sky, said Hop, and off went the broomstick out of the window, while Jump stood on the ground and watched them fly away from him up into the moonlit sky. That is the end of part 1 of my reading of the Book of Brownies. I hope you have enjoyed it. And remember, if I don't see you before, I'll see you the next time I see you.